Welcome everyone to the Preschool Mindfulness Summit. Today our speaker is Crystal McCreary, and she is coming to us from Crystal McCreary Yoga. I'm really excited to talk to her today. She is a mindfulness and health educator, an actor, speaker, and a writer. She's worked as an elementary school teacher and a yoga and mindfulness specialist and a health educator in detention centers and many different school settings. And she also does work with mindful schools, bent on learning, and the Lineage Project. So we're really excited to have her here today to talk to us about her work. And her topic today is making classroom management magic, mindful strategies for creating safety, compassionate relationships, and culture for all learnings. And she has very kindly given us a free resource, put on your oxygen mask first, gentle morning yoga sequence. So thank you so much, Crystal, for joining us today.
My absolute pleasure. I always love talking about what I'm up to and sharing resources with our community of educators. So I'm so glad to be a part of this. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, Crystal, I will just to let everyone know, you can click on Crystal's speaker bio, find out more about her, all her social media, and get that free download. So let's start by talking about some ideas that our viewers might like to know about how to build a compassionate and playful classroom. What kind of strategies can we use on a day-to-day basis to do that?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things I think as educators, we work so hard and our to-do lists are never ending. And, we love the work that we do. Obviously, we would not be doing it if we didn't, because it's the hardest work you could probably do. But in some of that hustle and bustle and, trying to meet all the various expectations and curricular standards and doing all the planning and, supporting the kids, supporting the parents and families, we sometimes our own magic and that connection to why we do what we do gets lost. And I really feel like, one of the most lasting and impactful tools that I have used over the years to create a compassionate classroom environment is to make clear, right, through who I'm being and through, how I show up every day with my actual kids, that this is a magical time in our class together. Like, we are about to have so much fun and we're going to play and sometimes it's acting. I'm not even kidding. And I do actually have an acting background. So I will honestly say, teaching is definitely a performative art. Like, it's a performing art, and, I have to tap this, capacity inside of me that is imaginative and creative. And when I do that, when I just show up that way, kids feel it. And it creates this feeling of safety and, okay, that's right, this is fun. School is not necessarily an anxiety producing environment full of other kids who have, with competing needs. And so there's, if I approach it like this is a time to have fun and, make new friends and, learn new things. And I'm literally connecting with that intention for myself and my kids throughout, that in and of itself is a beautiful foundation for having a compassionate space, right, to learn in. So I do, sort of have this metaphor of being the magician, or sometimes it's a metaphor. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, teachers really are magicians. We make a way out of no way all the time. We create optical illusions, all kinds of we're creating magic all the time. And when you consider that a magician can take different objects and have some exciting thing occur, kids are looking to us. We are the magic makers. Like, we feed them, we, show them new things that, and luckily in preschool, everything is new. So there's this inherent like mindful excitement about everything. And, as kids get older and they've seen a lot of things over and over again and they're less impressed, right? That's our job, is to like remind them that life is like a lifetime. I mean, learning happens across a lifetime. It's not just at school. It's not just, when you're young. And so I do use that sort of metaphor. And sometimes I use the metaphor of like being a conductor, because every kid in our class is different, just like every instrument is different, and a conductor is literally like knows all the parts, knows all the, the how all the instruments sound, knows how to conduct to create something really harmonious and beautiful, despite all these potentially competing sounds that we have in a classroom. And so, those sort of metaphors for like how I try to show up and see myself, as opposed to like, I'm the teacher and I have the information and I need to make sure you get it. And you got to make sure you perform that and show me that you get it so I can assess that. I kind of shift that narrative for myself around who I am. And when I know who I am, they know who I am, Yeah. So yeah, those are some of the biggest, probably the foundational piece in terms of like how my classroom will feel as a result of that. Then the really beautiful thing is, of course, I do get to teach, in this case, mindfulness, which is a practice of wonder and curiosity and attention. And often, the students themselves are actually what they're studying, right? They're the subject. Sometimes we're paying attention to sounds in the environment, or, like there's all kinds of things to be mindful of outside of ourselves when we practice mindfulness as well. But, they are inherently mindful of themselves and everything that's happening around them. So, it is inherently a magical exploration, Yeah. So luckily, the content that we're teaching lends itself really nicely to those ideas as well. And I think in this field, this burgeoning field of mindfulness and education, I do caution us to see it as just that, this practice of wonder and curiosity and, present moment awareness, that as opposed to a tool to help us, manage our kids and their classes or control them, a mechanism for control, a mechanism to help them perform on tests. All of those things may happen as a result, but the goal is really, if we're really clear about what the goal is in terms of it being an awareness building practice and a capacity that strengthens our ability to pay attention, and that is a constantly evolving but super supportive practice in and of itself. We're going to be really fortunate in that this can always be magical and fun.
Wow, I want to be in your class. It sounds great. Yeah. And I love what you said about the analogy with the orchestra. I think that's that's a really nice way of putting it. And like you said, preschool children they're naturally mindful, aren't they? They're all present and curious and things. So if we bring that same kind of mentality to our classrooms, we can share in that together. So Crystal, tell us, we know that trust is a very important part of the student-teacher relationship. So tell us some of maybe the practices that you use most often to kind of build that loving and trusting relationship with the students.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really like to do is, true in the spirit of mindfulness, keep judgment out of my classes, because, I know that often kids are doing things that are literally obstacles to learning, right? And so it can be very easy to just point out what's wrong, what's not working. And of course, when kids feel like the gaze that's upon them is one that's looking for what's wrong, it does decrease their feelings of being safe, like of the environment being safe and that they can trust the adult who is the teacher, but also their caregiver. So one of the things I really love to do is something called positive descriptive praise. So, and then in the first, depending on the structure and program that I'm teaching in, I might spend as many as 6 weeks really setting up and creating the classroom culture. It's like a year-long program. If it's not, if I'm just coming into school for like 10 to 12 weeks, one class a week, it may just be one class, but I really try to set the groundwork with creating community agreements that the kids and I co-create, right? They say what they need to feel safe and to learn, to be able to learn, to make new friends. And when those statements, and sometimes I'm dropping in things because of course preschool, they're not necessarily going to have a bunch of concepts in mind yet. But, we just kind of, in the case of preschool, it would be like on we would put this ultimately on like a poster with visual anchors. And the agreements are, okay, we're going to listen to each other and our eyes will be open and however we've agreed to be so that we can all learn, right? All those things have been stated. And I reinforce them using the positive descriptive praise by, so in other words, instead of pointing out when things aren't working in the class, I am constantly stating what is. I have trained my attention and my eye to literally, and when I say stating it, I mean, like, let's say I say something like, all right, let's all stand up in mountain pose in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That was the direction. When the kids follow the direction, instantly I'm like, I'm positively descriptively praising who is standing up in mountain pose instantly, right? So it's like it's almost like it's like a constant thread throughout the class where I state an expectation or state an agreement, and when I see them execute it and like follow through on what we've agreed to do to make our classroom community a learning community, I will shout them out for it. And I do it a lot. And of course, what do you think happens with preschoolers? If I'm saying,
they all want to do it.
Yeah, they're all like, oh, I want to do that too. And the thing is, it's like kids want to be seen. They want to be praised. They want to be acknowledged for the good person and good things that they're doing, right? Or, for lack of a better way to put it. But, and so when we do that, we're inviting, right? We're evoking more of this positive way of being that, again, is not about me, them meeting my expectation, but it's the group agreement that we've already made that's going to be supportive, right, for everybody. That's a strategy that really I have found, they believe that I'm looking for the good in them, not the negative. So that creates trust. Another thing that I like to do, I've started to call them love notes, but they're usually just notes of appreciation, which is similar to positive descriptive praise, but I will in preschool, depending on the population, some of them are readers already, but I'll write a note, or I'll, sometimes in the case of preschool, since they don't usually read just yet, I will whisper things to them, like a private message. And it's like a message of appreciation. I saw you. I know how hard it is for you to keep all your body parts on your yoga mat during mindfulness, or inside that square on the rug during mindfulness. I saw you do it today, and I want to tell you how proud I am of you. Good job. So I'll like whisper something to them, or write them a little, and I usually use Post-it notes when I'm doing the note of appreciation. So they see that, again, I'm seeing them, I'm acknowledging them. I appreciate how hard it is for a little preschooler to keep their body parts. That's hard to do. Hopefully they're not having to do that all day. That's not healthy, but for that age especially. But those are some of the things that I do to again foster a relationship, a deep, meaningful relationship, and also trust. The other thing that I like to do when like kids are really having a hard time and they're demonstrating more challenging behaviors is soften. And this, I will honestly say, my own mindfulness practice has helped me. Like, my default used to be to react when I was a new teacher, many, many years ago. I was triggered by behavior that was challenging. And now it's like when I it's almost like Pavlovian, it's like I feel my fight, flight, nervous system coming online. Like I literally start to breathe deeply through my nose, and it softens me. And of course it allows me to actually see the kid and see what's underneath the behavior, right?
Yeah.
I'm more mindful. I can actually attune to what their need is, their social or emotional need. And that softening allows me to then state what I'm observing without judgment, right? Like I'll say, wow, it looks like you're really angry right now. Your hands are in fists. Your face is red, right? And I'll just state what I see in a very mindful way, right? And a non-judgmental way. And this literally has this capacity to just make them see themselves, right? And shift. It brings about this moment of like awareness that they can then, decide like, oh yeah, I am angry, and it de-escalates the behavior because it puts this breath of awareness into, what's happening with them. And, I'll usually express some kind of compassionate thing like, wow, that's looks like you're having a hard time. You know what? Do you need some time? Do you need some time to take some, in the case of us having done some mindfulness, for a while, do you need some time on the rug to take some deep breaths? But I soften as opposed to, getting amped up.
Reacting.
Reacting. And then I use my practice to support them. Those are things that help build trust and keeping the love between us. And in preschool, it's such a love fest. They're hugging, loving.
Most of the time, yeah, they really are. Yeah, great strategies, Crystal, and I really love, especially the last part, what you said about your own reactions, because I think that's something that, as you said, you kind of do it over and over, and then you get good at softening, as you said, and instead of reacting. So let's talk about some strategies maybe to create a safe classroom structure, because we know we have lots of kids running around, sometimes wanting to touch lots of things. And how do we keep the structure safe in the class, but still have that fun and wonder and curiosity and freedom in the classroom?
One of the things I like to do, and most preschool teachers have this down pat, but have really playful transitions and rituals and routines inside the classroom to transition from one activity to the next, or one place in the room to the next. And I absolutely, in my yoga and mindfulness classes over the years, have borrowed from those years of being an elementary school teacher and incorporating a lot of those routines and rituals into how we transition into these practices. So for sure, one of the things that I like to do is when I'm stating like, okay, this is what's going to happen next. I like to do things like, have a playful way to transition them. Like, so for instance, let's say they're standing, or, around the room, I might say like, stop, freeze, and, feather fall down to your mat. Right. To your yoga mat and take your yoga seat or your mindful seat. And so it's like a playful way to transition, but then I actually hold them accountable for doing that. So sometimes we give these directions, and then when the kids don't do it, we kind of huff or sigh to ourselves, and it's like, so instead of, just like stating something, and then when they don't follow through, kind of just let it go, I will say, oh, you know what? Maybe my directions weren't clear. I wonder if we can try that again, because I know 100% of us can feather fall down into our yoga seat. Let's try it again, right? So I will hold them accountable, and we'll do it again. We'll try it again. And again, I'm not making them wrong. I'm just saying, you know what? We can do better. And I'm holding them accountable to an expectation that is high, as opposed to, just, stating was something that I need, and then that, like, letting it go that they didn't, not that I need personally, but the class needs rather to function and for learning to happen. And I'm stated, but when I state it, the goal is for us to, support them to see that they are capable of meeting high expectations, which really, frankly, you know, in a lot of populations, this is really important. You know, we happen to live in a culture that there's a lot of implicit bias against certain kids, certain populations, and, you know, and holding them accountable and making sure it's clear to them that we know that they can do it, and that, you know, they you know, are capable of excellence, are capable of, you know, these basic things that we're asking them to do, actually carries a lot more weight, you know, subconsciously and long term in terms of how they approach, you know, treating their education, right, with some, you know, self-respect. So I, you know, that's a big, you know, thing that I really like to do in terms of, you know, classroom structure, right? The other thing that I like to do is, you know, make sure that my voice is not the most dominant voice in the room. I feel like kids need to move, they need to talk, they need to be engaged with one another. And so I like to build in structured time for them to feel free, right? So in a case of preschool, you know, if we are, you know, if I'm, you know, I'm doing less like calling on one person, and there's a lot of turn and talk, or, you know, independent learning time, do your own version of tree, do your own version of flower pose, or, you know, find your, you know, what's your mindful seat today, you know, and they're getting to explore and play in a way and talk, you know, but there's an inherent freedom with each activity, like the way that they, you know, get to mountain, the way that they fall down, or the way that they do these different things, there's a freedom inside of it, so that it's not like, you know, even though I'm holding them to high expectations, that's not the only thing that they feel like they're doing for the 45 minutes or half an hour we're exploring mindfulness together. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I love all those strategies, and you know, very we know preschool children, as you said, like to talk and like to be curious and move and things, and so the way that, you know, you're explaining to incorporate that into the mindfulness practice as well is really important, I think, to, you know, do what kids need to do instead of our own kind of expectations or things. So, Crystal, can you share maybe with us a couple of practical mindfulness strategies that you would recommend to the teachers watching that might help them?
Absolutely. You know, I do have a pretty rich personal practice. And, you know, as far as practical applications of mindfulness that are, I think is one, you know, really having a toolkit of strategies to resource yourself. You know, I think, you know, because if I'm really being honest, you know, our kids are watching everything that we do, and they learn more by seeing. You know, one of the things we know about preschool is that they are imitating everything, right? They need visuals. We do everything with them as they do it, because they need, they're part of the way they learn is imitation, repetition. And so when you consider that, hoping that they, you know, gain these tools of mindfulness themselves by us teaching them or talking to them and talking them through how to do it, what's even more important is that we're modeling that we're doing it, right? So when we, you know, have those moments inside the day where we need to pause and take a deep breath, you know, and say, whoa, it's getting really loud in here and I'm starting to feel a little bit nervous and anxious. You know what? Can we all pause? Can you all take a moment and breathe with me, right? And model our own mindful self-care, our own ability to resource ourselves so that we can show up and you know, afterwards and like be back to our magical magician conductor self, you know, that is a really important application of mindfulness. I am not of the school of thought that we can go and do a training and just give all this stuff to our kids and expect them to learn anything if we are not doing it and modeling it ourselves, if we are not embodying that spirit of mindfulness ourselves. The other thing that and for me, so my default in terms of personal practice is slow, deep nasal breathing, right? Through my nose. You like to touch my body. I think this is a really useful way to teach kids because it gives them some kinesthetic feedback and it does anchor their breathing practice. It doesn't require anything. You never know what setting you'll be in. They might not have a glitter jar or a breathing ball, a Hoberman sphere or whatever, props we love to use in preschool. You might not have access to that, but you do have access to your body and your breath. So a default is hands on the heart and the belly and pausing to breathe and just literally watching from the inside, the rise and fall of the belly of the chest. So that would be, a really simple, practical application. You can do it throughout the day, at all different times of day that you might need to reset yourself or the class might need to be reset. The other, mindful practice that I think has supported me is knowing my why. Why am I teaching this? Because again, I think a lot of us are teaching it because we've heard the research and we know it's just generally good for our kids who, suffer from anxiety or like having really big emotional, explosive moments inside of a classroom. And, again, we want to many of us want to put a cap on that because it's distracting from the learning. But, when our why is connected, when we're connected to why, especially when things get really challenging, it helps us stay the course, right? And my why, I spend a lot of time in the morning doing my own mindfulness practice. I have an altar. I'll set personal intentions for myself, and what I would, knowing what's coming for the day. I'll speak, into existence the possibility of the support, right? Having support and realizing this intention, because it does take, we're not superheroes, although we're often expected, we're not, so knowing why I'm there, and it's complicated. It should have some depth, right? Yeah. So my reason for teaching, I'm constantly peeling back those layers, an incident happened at the school I teach at this week that really connected me in a profound way to my why, without going into too many details, but it was a very, very somber week at my school. And, I can't do this work effectively if I'm not connected on a deep level, right? And for me, that's spiritual, I will honestly say, and for me, spirit is truth and love. Right. So, if I'm not connected to really what's true for me and which are things that allow me to stay connected and loving, with myself and others, then it's a wrap. So connecting with your why, really, why are you showing up to teach? And what's underneath that? And what's underneath that? And what's underneath that?
I love so those that because we don't. I mean, a lot of us don't take the time to really come back to that question of why. Why did you get into this field? And I think what you said is so important. And I love everything that you said about self-care as well. I think it's so important. That's why I've been sipping my water throughout this. I've got a bit of a sore throat. But what I really loved is when you talked about saying to the students, oh, I'm feeling a bit anxious right now. I love that, because I think that's what we should be doing, is showing them that it's normal to experience these things, and the teacher experiences as well, and so I really, really love those tips. So thank you so much, Crystal, for coming on today and sharing all those amazing tools and strategies and ways of being and ideas that we can bring into our preschool classroom.
Absolutely, my pleasure. One thing I should probably mention, and I didn't include it
Yeah.
on my speaker bio page because technically it hasn't been released yet, but I do have a yoga resource coming out. It won't come out until 2021, but it's through Shambhala Publications. It's called Yogi Kids, and it's a card deck that specifically support with mindfulness tools to support, and yoga tools to support kids navigate challenging emotions. So that resource will, be, I hope, something that you could sort of share post haste, but it's coming, it's out there. So a lot of this stuff.
Well, it's good to know what things are coming, and we'll have to do something when it's closer to the date and share with our community. That would be amazing. Yeah, but thank you again so much. And everyone, remember to download the free resource and check out all of Crystal's social media and website to get more information about her. And thank you again, Crystal.
Thank you, Helen. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Thanks.